Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping in to a new beer from Westbound Down. We've done quite a few of their beers. They're based in Idaho Springs, Colorado. This specific beer is called 5 Years Strong. It is a strong ale clocking in at 13.2% ABV. This is a blended strong ale that's also inherently got a different blend of barrel aging because of the blends of the beers that were used to make it. So 5 Years Strong. This is their brew in commemoration of their 5-year anniversary. So a nice present to themselves. So they do go through the trouble of telling us exactly what the blend is on this beer. This is 16% of their double absinthe that's aged in Weller barrels, 16% of their Louis, also Weller barrels, 33% of Abundance aged in Blanton's barrels, 34% of Louis that was aged in Dickel rye barrels. So a nice blend of 4 different beers and different barrels on this beer. Sounds absolutely awesome. As always, Westbound Down, very clean, simple designs on their label art, not much to talk about. So let's get this cracked. And we're going to use our stout glass today. That also works quite well for strong ales. One of my absolute favorite beer styles. I don't drink enough of them. They're not the easiest style to find, but it's always a treat when you do. So let's get this poured right in the old glass. All right, this one's got a nice dark brown color. Strong ales can kind of be all over the board. They're typically going to be darker, sometimes a little more caramelly. They're typically going to be darker, okay? This one, pretty active in terms of carbonation. That's pretty common for a strong ale and especially a higher ABV one. Visually, yeah, it's absolutely pitch black. And I can tell you, I am really getting a massive sense of the aroma. This is a good couple feet from my nose. I mean, as soon as you start to pour it and that head forms and opens up, it's just aroma city. So head's holding okay. Let's give it a sniff. Yeah, there's this nice maltiness and caramelly sense underneath it. There's almost aromas of molasses on there too. It smells very dark, very rich, and the barrels are really coming off very, very clearly. It smells like a nice mix of bourbon, whiskey, very spirit-like mixed with this big caramelly input. And there's even a little suggestion of kind of raisin-like quality on there as well. So it does share some common themes with kind of other big ABV beer styles, notably barley wine. But this is going to be a different beer drinking experience to be certain. So it looks great. It smells great. Head settled down a little bit, but it's still got a nice bit of cling and a nice little pad floating on top. Let's jump right in, see what this one's about. Oh man, yeah. Yeah, that's a very nice beer. Big, bold, punchy flavors. Very rich. A lot of richness to it. So, 13.2% ABV. It's a strong ale after all. Let's talk texture first. The mouthfeel on this is nice and resistant. This one does get extremely creamy, very silky in the way that it feels when you agitate around the palate. In terms of the body on this one, I would say it's sitting right about the large, medium, heavy, bordering on the heavy. It feels right for a 13.2% ABV. It's a high alcohol content, and this beer feels like it has substance, both weight-wise and texturally speaking. In terms of the flavor profile, so yeah, how it relates to the aromas. There's a lot of caramelly overtones. Obviously, the barrels come through quite clearly. There was a big undercurrent of molasses on the nose as well, and even some raisin-like aromas coming off of it. In the flavor profile, there's a good mix of that, but what really comes through is dominant, and this is where something like a big strong ale does take a departure from their kind of sort of related barley wine counterparts, in that they typically are going to have more bitters on them. It's pretty prototypical for the style. Not always, but it's typically a different blend of malts, and it's got a lot more roasty edge to it, which inherently has a lot more of a bitter character to it. It also brings out a lot more depth to the flavor of beer. So yes, you do get some caramelization, you do still get some kind of fruity accents, but it's a lot more dominated on this beer with kind of roast and roasty malts. That's the edge that's really coming through on this beer. So the side of that profile that really comes through, a little bit of the caramel side, but a lot of that molasses that I could smell on the nose really does translate into the glass. And the bulk of this seems to be coming from the depth of the roast itself. It's really nice, it's earthy, it's got a nice kick of bitters to it, and then this beautiful blend of barrels that pops through as well. So there's a lot happening. It's very complex in terms of its flavor profile, the way that all of the different subtleties of the flavors ebb and flow. It's absolutely delicious. What a great beer to mark a 5-year anniversary for my money. I'm gonna jump back in, take a second sip, pick this apart, let everything re-intensify, make sure I didn't miss anything. Then we'll talk about the finish, but this is an absolute winner of a strong ale. Take two. Big. Up front, it's a little boozy suggestion. There's a boatload of barrel, nice bitter kick, a lot of earthiness, a lot of molasses, good bit of caramel. And it's in the first couple of seconds where some of the fruity undercurrents do make their presence known. I did smell some raisin-like quality on the nose. You get a little bit of that in the flavor profile. A little bit of raisin, maybe a little bit of plum. Outside of that, it's really barrel and malt and the kind of intertwining and underpinnings. There's a bit of this roasty edge to the malt that does kind of put you in mind a little bit of coffee-like notes, but it's the really roasty side, so it doesn't really taste like coffee per se. It's, again, where we're getting into that slight charry edge of French, Italian roast kind of coffee bean, that type, which gives this big undercurrent of earthiness to it as well. So there's a lot of roastiness, a lot of earthiness, a lot of char, and the barrel's popping out clearly. Nice kick of bitters, nice bit of molasses, just a touch of raisin, a touch of plum, but it's dominated by just this richness and the barrel. Indeed, as the flavors re-intensify, that becomes even more apparent, and indeed the bitters even pop out a lot more clearly. In terms of the length of the finish on this, it's a big multi-barrel aged strong ale, high ABV. Yeah, it's got a long finish. You would expect it to, and indeed it does. It's kind of driven dominantly by this rich, roasty malt bill, which for my money is quite nice. So these driving earthy bitters you get up front on the roasty edge of the malts, that's what's really driving the length. And yeah, there's still some nice subtlety of the barrel, but it's mostly this nice earthy bitter sense with a nice bit of roastiness and char from the malt bill and a little bit of the barrels that kind of linger there. And it does take a pretty good time running out before it finally dissipates. I'd say it's pushing minute and a half, 2 minutes before the last vestiges of the lingering flavor on the palate do finally dissipate to nothing. It's very, very long. Absolutely delicious. I love a good strong ale, and this is a great strong ale. I absolutely love it. I'm going to take my time to sip on this one, come my scores. When we come back, we'll get this beer ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This was Westbound Down's 5 years strong, a barrel-aged strong ale that was blended, clocking in at 13.2% ABV. Westbound Down is based in Idaho Springs, Colorado. So here we go again. Here's another one of these big, just top-tier beers that nearly got a perfect score. I have had a lot of beers in the last 12 months that have nearly gotten a perfect score, a tiny handful that have made it into that perfect 100 score category. This one came very, very close. Just as with a couple of the recent beers we've done, the only category it did not get a perfect score in was head and retention. And this one definitely did a really good job for this style. Above average, but strong ales can often be very, very active in terms of carbonation. And if they don't have a super fine carbonation profile, it can often just collapse that head before it really has a chance to get formed, let the aromatics come out and kind of retain in the glass. This one did above average to be certain, but it just did dissipate a little quicker than you would hope for and anticipate. But I mean, very, very small little issue with one category. So head and retention did get an 8 out of 10. Yet again, another beer here, perfect 10 out of 10 in all remaining categories. That's aroma, taste, body, mouthfeel, finish, appearance, balance, my subjective thoughts, feeling, and the intangible, and finally, example of the style, which does, of course, bring the total score on Westbound and Down's 5-year strong to a 98 out of 100. So, guys, this was just absolute top-tier strong ale. It's a beer style I really, really enjoy. In fact, barley wine may be my overall favorite beer style in the world, but my absolute favorite beer, my number one personal favorite beer in the world, is a strong ale. You know, it's just one of those styles. I love them. A very well done strong ale is just like a well done barley wine. It's big, it's bold, it's multifaceted, multi-layered. Get a lot of mileage out of each sip. I just absolutely love them. And this was a tremendously well done example of that. The nice blend of different ales that they used to make this one, the barrels that they had for the different blends, it was just top notch. I absolutely loved it. If you're a fan of big, bold beers, barrel-aged beers, or strong ales in general, this is one you definitely want to try to get your hands on. This is one of the best strong ales I have ever had. Absolutely worth it. Folks, that's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications, hit that bell icon. It's right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.